That is the whole problem with aliens. You just can't trust them. Occasionally you meet a nice one, but usually they turn out to be some kind of big lizard.
The Skraby Show starts now on 97.3 The Fan.
Hello and welcome into the Skraby Show for December 16th, 2025. Thank you to everybody who's joining me tonight. And we're going to dig deep into some of these Padres trade rumors, specifically why I think the Padres are exploring. What in the world is happening?
This is Xander Bogaerts.
Sorry, everybody. I don't know what happened.
On San Diego's #1 sports station, 97.3 The Fan.
And the Padres in front.
An Odyssey sports station.
I actually do know what happened because Chris took that extra time. I'm not blaming Chris. I moved the whole legal too far down. All right, so we got that in. We are now legal. Anyway, we're going to talk about some of these players that are being talked about in these trades. And I went through each one of them, and I want to see why the Padres would consider shopping them. So I have a bunch of thoughts on that. Also, we're going to have the Daily Gripe, obviously. But Phillip Rivers did something, and we're going to talk about this. We're going to talk about this at the end of the show. But Phillip Rivers did something that really, 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 really helped out his family. So we will definitely go and talk about that at the end of the show. But to start, this is the final Skraby show of the year. It is kind of crazy that we're already at the end of the year. And I just have to say that this year has been crazy for me, for everybody. I know that there are a lot of people who have had crazy years and they keep getting crazier. But I really think that this year might have been my best year. And I'm saying it might have been my best year because I've grown a lot personally. I've also done a lot in my career. So each year seemingly is getting better and better and better. And I have to thank a lot of you who are listening right now, because honestly, all the nice comments that I get are what keeps me going. And so without getting too sappy here in the final Skraby show of the year, I do appreciate everyone for listening and for putting up with me and for entertaining my wacky, sometimes crazy thoughts. And honestly, I wouldn't be doing the show without some of the people out there. So appreciate all of you. And I will be back in the new year. I have ideas that I'm going to try to flesh out here during the break. And I'm going to be back and better than ever. I'm also going to I'm toying with the idea of doing a live Skraby show after Christmas before we get back here. And it'll be on YouTube because I promised everyone another special Skraby show where I go through all of my old radio audio, and a lot of it has to be with let me start that over. A lot of it has to do with me being drunk, because one of my jobs back in the day on the radio was to go out and ask people trivia questions at bars, and it ended up being me more drunk than the contestant themselves. So we have all that audio. I have all that audio that I've been going through, but I will let everybody know if something like that happens. You can also go and subscribe to the YouTube if you want to see any broadcasts that are scheduled at the Skraby Show. My last name, Skraby as in boy, Y, at the Skraby Show on YouTube. You'll be able to find it there. All right. Tony and I never got into this, so I'm going to start with this today because I do find it somewhat satisfying, and it has to do with the FIFA ticket prices and the outrage, and now all of a sudden they're going to be offering $60 tickets, but I really haven't been following much of the World Cup goings on here, because I know it's going to be in North America, so I should be a little bit more up on it. But I didn't realize how insane some of these prices are for these games. And of course, they're all priced for the games that are, the better games. So June 11th, Mexico versus South Africa in Mexico City, there's 3 categories for tickets. And the first category for this is $2,355. The second category, $1,705. And then the third category, $1,020. So that's for Mexico versus South Africa. Now, in comparison, if you want to go see Haiti versus Scotland in Boston at Foxborough, Category 1 ticket is $500. The Category 2 ticket is $400. The Category 3 ticket is $180. So obviously, I guess not much call for Haiti versus Scotland up there in the Boston area, but I didn't realize how insane these ticket prices were. Here's the United States versus Paraguay, and this is going to be in LA. Category 1 ticket for this game, $2,735. Category 2 ticket, $1,940. Category 3 ticket, $1,120. Number one, I get that people are into this. I really know that the World Cup is a huge thing for a lot of people, and I like the World Cup as well. But to say that you're going to charge $2,735 for I'm assuming that's one ticket, I don't know how you can actually charge these prices. And so everybody freaked out about it, as they should. The final apparently has a ticket price of $4,185, which you could buy already, but those ticket prices are going to go up. Basically, what people are very surprised about here is that FIFA reacted and actually lowered some of the ticket prices. And so they're not lowering all of the ticket prices, but FIFA said today that $60 tickets will be made available for every game at the tournament in North America, going to the national federations whose teams are playing. Those federations decide how to distribute them to loyal fans who have attended previous games at home and on the road. So they're going from $460 tickets per team to $750 per team, and they're calling it the supporter entry tier. I don't care what they're calling it. $60 tickets are probably what these tickets should be priced anyway, but I'm getting more and more tired of sports organizations just trying to take us for every single penny we have. So I didn't realize this, but this is the first time that there's going to be 48 World Cup teams, up from 32. And get this, it's expected to earn FIFA at least $10 billion with a B billion dollars in revenue. But at the same time, it's also going to be the most expensive for fans, which that doesn't make sense to me. How do you make $10 billion in revenue, but it gets more expensive for fans? I understand this is happening everywhere, and I say this a lot, but the one thing that we could do is to control ticket prices and things of that nature is to just not pay them. But for some reason, people just continue paying them, and these companies are going to continue making it more and more expensive. But did we really need 16 more teams in the World Cup? I guess I'm not qualified to say anything about it because I'm not the biggest World Cup historian in the world. But it's ridiculous. It is ridiculous for this. $10 billion in revenue, and you can only make 750 tickets per country at $60 an hour, or $60 an hour at $60 a piece. Like, some of these other tickets they're affordable. Ivory Coast versus Ecuador. Category 1, 500. Category 2, 400. Category 3, 180. That's in Philly. Germany versus Curacao in Houston, 500, 400, 180. I think those prices are a little bit more in line to what people should be asked to pay. But there is not, in the game between the U.S. and Paraguay, there is not a ticket on their sheet right here that I'm looking at that is under $1,000. That is insane. I just don't understand it. And I get that this is a once every 4-year thing. And so maybe they need to really go all in and make all of their money right now. But I think they're doing okay with the $10 billion. It's kind of like the NFL. $25 billion in revenue, and it's not enough. It's not enough. They want to go to 18 games, and the players aren't going to be paid anymore. And in football's case, if I'm a player and they're going to make me play 18 games, I'm not even willing to consider that, because if the owners are already mad that they have to pay as much as they have to for players when the entire league is pocketing $25 billion in revenue per year. Like, I just don't understand it. I don't understand why the costs of sporting events and things like that keep coming down to us, because everybody seems to be making money and we're just facilitating it by paying those high prices. When Tony told me this story, it was right up my alley. I did not realize that it was completely up my alley. Not to mention that FIFA isn't in its totality, in its history, FIFA is not the most stand-up organization out there. So it makes me angry that people can make bad decisions and we still end up with the cost. I don't know. I'm just kind of thinking out loud at this point, but it's wild to me. It's wild. Like, how much money do you really need? How much money do you really need? Apparently more than $25 billion and more than $10 billion. Like, just, what you could do is you can make tickets affordable, and then the ticket demand will go up. And then, you know what? You're going to make fans for life. And a fan for life is more important to me than a fan that's willing to pay $1,000 just for one ticket. I don't know. Maybe I'm just complaining because I'm old and it's late in the year. But I'm just not a fan of everything in sports going up. The prices to watch sports. That includes the subscriptions that you have to watch sports, the multiple different locations now that games are being streamed because Netflix is willing to pay more than Paramount or something like that. I just don't get it. I'm at a loss for words, which is a very, very interesting thing. I have not really ever been at a loss for words. Trevor said, FIFA more corrupt. Let's see. See, Greg, inflation is crazy everywhere. I know there's other factors to this, but I do feel like in a time when a lot of people are struggling, sports organizations are like, I don't care if you're struggling. I want you to come see my game, so pay me $1,000. And I don't care if you have to pay your rent. I mean, ultimately, it's not up to FIFA to pay your rent, but you know what I'm saying. You know what I'm saying. Okay, I didn't realize I was going to do Daily Greg to start the show. That was unexpected, but needed, I think. And when we get back, we're going to go through all of the players that have been rumored in Padres trades: Mason Miller, Jeremiah Estrada, Nick Pivetta, Adrian Morejon, Ramon Laureano. We'll talk about all of them and in the perspective of why you would want to shop these guys in trades. So we'll talk about that when we get back on the Skraby Show, 97.3 The Fan. If you want to watch all of our shows here on 97.3 The Fan, you can go to the 97.3 The Fan YouTube account. Just type in 97.3 The Fan. You can also go to Facebook, 97.3 The Fan, Twitter, 97.3 The Fan SD, and also on the Odyssey app. Go to the Odyssey app and type in 97.3 The Fan, and it will take you right there if you wanted to use the Odyssey app. So I was just saying earlier in the show, sorry, I just coughed. And it's always awkward when you're by yourself here in studio. But I was just saying about how this is the last Skraby show and all this other stuff. So I'll give the schedule for the next couple of weeks, at least for Gwen and Chris and for myself. Friday is going to be the last show of the year for, I believe, Bennett Woods as well. They have their big extravaganza. But for Gwen and Chris and myself, yes, definitely we are done on Friday the 19th. I am really looking forward to 2 weeks of doing nothing. This is like one of my new things that I look forward to each and every year. It's the end of the year vacation because I save up my days and I want to be able to use them all. But I am going to be going up to Northern California for Christmas to visit my sister and her kids, my nephews or my nephew and my nieces. Going to go up there for Christmas. So that's going to be fun. Someone on the chat, Alyssa, said Chef Skraby. I'm not sure why, but I said, yes, I am a chef. And then Jocelyn on the chat said, hey, are you making Filipino food? And I said, no, I am not making Filipino food. But here's something I'm going to attempt to make. And I think I said this on the Gwen and Chris overtime yesterday, but I'm not a chef. I am not someone who will say, hey, I can cook you something great, but I like to cook here and there. I like to grill things. I like to do things like that. I'm decent at it. And so this year, my sister was trying to figure out what to eat on Christmas night, and she knows, and guess what? Everybody's going to hate me for this, but I cannot stand prime rib. It is too rare for me. There's a lot of fat on it. I'm just not a big fan of prime rib at all. And so my sister knows this, and she asked me, what about a prime rib? And she's like, I know you don't like it, blah, blah, blah. And I said, okay, if you guys want to have a prime rib, all good. Have a prime rib. I can find my own stuff. She's like, no, I don't really want a prime rib anyway. I lost my train. I don't really want to have prime rib anyway. So she said, oh, you know what we could do? Have you ever had a beef Wellington before? And so I know it's really random to say beef Wellington, but we've watched Hell's Kitchen forever on, the TV show, and all they do is make beef Wellington on that show. But anyway, we've always said it looks good and we want to try it one day. So she said, you want to try to make beef Wellington? I looked up a couple recipes. It looks extremely complicated. I'm not going to lie. I don't think it's going to turn out like the picture, but I'm going to try and make a beef Wellington. I am going to try it and attempt it. And there's a lot more to a beef Wellington than I thought there was to a beef Wellington. But if I do, beef welly has liver pate. What is that? Wait, what? Everybody's telling me, oh, I don't know. Everybody's telling me these crazy things about the beef Wellington on the chat, and I'm just not really sure. I don't like. Here's my thing with meat. Save that clip. I don't like very rare meat, and I don't like meat off the bone. I'm not a big dark meat chicken guy. There's a lot I don't like, and so eating the beef Wellington, now that I'm seeing all these things, I'm a little scared. I'm a really picky eater, but I'm going to try it. And if I don't try it, then I will never talk about it again. But if I do try it, I'll take some pictures and I'll share with everyone. We'll see. I'm not a big pate person. All right. Oh, here's a nice comment. The Rusty Lettuce, which is a great name. Hey, congrats on the last show of the year. Just started listening to you guys a lot this year, and you guys are great. And you often channel what I'm yelling in my car. Thanks, Skarby. Really, it's okay, Rusty Lettuce. I saw it. You said Skraby. Good stuff. Thank you for sharing that. I appreciate that. Those are one of those things that make me, want to keep coming back to work each and every day. Okay, I'm keep seeing pate stuff. I know what a pate is. Raw stuff. I'm just gonna omit it, as Emiki says. Rod says you stressed him out now. Yes. Oh, Alyssa said, I called you chef because you're cooking with the ticket prices. Thank you, Alyssa. It ended up in a place where I was telling everybody about how I'm going to make beef Wellington. Okay. I promise this. I'm going to deliver it now. And we have, to look at this, I think, when we're talking about the Padres' rumored players to be traded, we have to look at this from a perspective of payroll because of all the reports that payroll needs to stay the same as last year. And I'm even seeing reports, and who knows if these reports are true, but the Padres want to slash payroll even more for this year. We will not know until the season begins as to what the payroll is all about. And, joining in on the conversation, there were two signings that the Angels made here in the last half hour or so. First one, right-handed reliever Jordan Romano. I think he wanted to be called Romano. And the Angels agree in a 1-year, $2 million deal. Also, old friend alert, the Angels have agreed to terms on a 1-year, $4 million deal with Drew Pomerantz. Drew Pomerantz was great last year for the Cubs. He was great, and it made me jealous because I remember all the time that Drew Pomerantz spent on the IL when he was a Padre. But $4 million for Drew Pomerantz? See, these are the questions that I have. Why? And maybe they've been there, done that thing with Drew Pomerantz, and so they weren't interested. But $4 million for I think that works. I think that works. Sorry, I'm all over the place today. I'm all over the place. This is the last show of the year, but $4 million for Drew Pomerantz, I think, is affordable. So when I see guys coming off the board for $4 million, like Drew Pomerantz, who had a year of all years last year, I'm like, what's going on with the Padres? But let's start with Mason Miller, because he's probably the one that's going to fetch the most. Here's why the Padres would consider shopping him. He's got control through 2029. He's estimated to make $3.3 million in 2026. His biggest trade value, I think, is not his pitching. It's the control on his contract. And personally, if I am the Padres, I am not going to make a deal unless something completely blows me away. You're going to have to really, really, really give me a great return for me to give away Mason Miller with years of control. And we've talked about it on Going Chris. Why trade Leo DeVries last year just to turn around and say, let's get two players that aren't as good? If the Padres hold on to Mason Miller, you could have a top 5 closer in baseball for the next 4 seasons at a cap price. And this is value I can't trade. It's like having a great tight end in fantasy football. You set it and forget it. If you have a closer, you could set it and forget it. But teams want that contract control. And so I can understand why the Padres are willing to listen on Mason Miller requests, because of how much that control is going to fetch you. I mean, I think most of the trade last year with DeVries was about the Mason Miller control in his contract. So teams want that. They also want Mason Miller, but teams want that more than anything, is that contract control, because that's going to be very important as we go along. Jeremiah Estrada, he's still in pre-arb. He has years of control ahead. He's projected at $820,000 this year. I think Jeremiah Estrada has worked himself into a role on this team, but I also think that the Padres would be willing to shop him, because I don't know if a team comes a calling for Jeremiah Estrada. I think you have to listen because your acquisition of him, he was just picked up off of waivers, I believe. He was on the Cubs and then they let him go. He made his way over to San Diego and he's worked himself into a role with his pitching staff. I personally, I don't want to say like I would be okay if Jeremiah Estrada was traded. I don't know that Jeremiah Estrada is going to get you that player that is going to help you get to the next level. But Jeremiah Estrada, again, biggest, I think, plus about him is the contract control. He's got lots of contract control. So that's why I think the Padres are willing to listen on things like that. Now, the more I think about Nick Pivetta, as much as I love the energy he has and as much as I think that he was great for the Padres last year, he's going into a year where he's going to have a $19 million salary, and then he has 2 player opt-outs, one for 2027, one for 2028. The salary in 2027 goes from in 2026, $19 million. In 2027, $14 million, and then in 2028, $18 million. So basically, if he has another good year this year, Nick Pivetta will opt out of his $14 million deal. And I think that he would make more money opting out and trying to get a new contract. So what you're looking at with Nick Pivetta is you're looking at him in a walk year. And so that's why the Padres would be interested in shopping and talking about packages that include Nick Pivetta. Because I can think about a world where the Padres trade him because of the likely opt-out next year and you're in a rental year for him. Do you go and trade for some major league ready but not proven players to help? I think that's the big question. It depends on the players, of course. And when we get to Ramon Laureano, I will say the same thing. But Nick Pivetta, coming off of a career year, do we think that he could be that same guy in 2026 that he was in 2025? I'm not sure. Are you selling high on Nick Pivetta? There are benefits to listening to offers on Nick Pivetta. And if he stays, I'm going to love Nick Pivetta here. But if he's traded and the trade makes sense, I will be sad for his personality to go. But if it makes sense, I could see this happening. Trevor says, this is where team sale hurts. We should sign Pivetta long term. I don't necessarily disagree with that, but we are where we are. And that's the circumstance. And we can't get out of those circumstances right now. So, again, I can think about a world where the Padres trade Nick Pivetta because of the likely opt-out in 2027 when he's scheduled to make $14 million. And one more time, coming off of a career year, that scares me a little bit. Adrian Morejon, last year of team control, he's making an estimated $5.25 million. I mean, with him, he's obviously going to be a free agent next year. Other than trading him to a team that needs a closer, I don't know many guys that are willing to pay a very high price for a 6th, 7th, or 8th inning guy. I just don't know many teams that are willing to do that. And the reason is he's going to be a free agent next year. I think if you were able to find a team that wanted to give him a contract past this year, then maybe. But I don't foresee Adrian Morejon going anywhere. I don't foresee him going anywhere at all. Now, Ramon Laureano, there's a little bit more to this. So I think I'm going to take a break. When we come back, we'll talk Ramon Laureano, and then we'll finish up the show with the Daily Gripe. But we have a lot of conversation to be had about Ramon Laureano and whether or not the Padres would trade him here in this offseason. So you're listening to The Skraby Show. I'm going to finish The Skraby Show year strong on 97.3 The Fan. Final segment of the year for the Skraby Show. I'll be with Gwen and Chris the rest of the week. I just got some stuff going on. Unfortunately, I have to miss the Skraby Show but stay tuned for 2026. We're going to have lots going on in 2026, I hope. We're going to talk Ramon Laureano in a second. I also remember I teased Philip Rivers. Remember I was going to put it on a whiteboard, so I did right here. Dry erase board. So make sure that I do it. We're also going to get to the Daily Gripe at the end of the show. Now, Ramon Laureano. We were just talking about last segment about players that the Padres, the perspective of the Padres, why they would shop these players and why teams would want these players. Now, Ramon Laureano, if you've been listening today, you've heard me say I do not want him traded. But the more I think about it, the more I realize the potential for a Laureano trade. It's the final year of his contract, $6.5 million club option, free agent year next year. So, like Pivetta, he is a rental of sorts. And so you got to think, if we're not going to bring him back long term, then this is going to be one last year for him. And again, before I say this next part, so that people hear me, I do not want them to trade Laureano. I think he fits with this team, and I think we saw how good he was last year for the Padres. But I am, again, looking at a guy coming off of a career year. If you're looking at his entire career, last year was an aberration year for him. He had his best year with a 3.8 WAR. The next highest year was 2019 with a 3.5 WAR. His most home runs, or he tied for his most home runs at 24 between 2025 and 2019. He had his most RBIs last year. He had a 288 average in 2019, which is his highest season batting average. And last year he had a 281 average. And then last year he had the best OPS plus of his career last year. So you're looking at a guy who outperformed everything and all the expectations that he had coming into the year for the Orioles, turned him into a trade piece. And he's with the Padres. He helped the Padres a ton. And again, if there is a San Diego sports curse, we could point right to the fact that Ramon Laureano broke his hand the week before the playoffs, which we don't know what would have happened, but it would have helped to have Ramon Laureano in that lineup to break up all those lefties. But here are the baseball reference projections for 2026. And I know these mean nothing, but at least I'm looking to these for guidance into what I think he should be doing this year. The projected 2026 year for Ramon Laureano is to hit 18 home runs, to have drive in 59 RBIs, to have an OPS of 766 and a batting average of 256. So that year is much different from his year that he had last year in totality between the Orioles and the Padres. But if I'm thinking about creating some value, I think there's no time like the present with Ramon Laureano with his value, because if he is a 256 hitter, 766 OPS, 18 homers, and 59 RBIs, it's definitely, it's a contribution, but I don't know that you hang on to him in a rental year for those type of numbers. And so what I'm saying is maybe the Padres need to look into seeing what they can get. And I am sure that they are. I'm sure that they're doing many things that I've never even thought of. But this makes the most sense for me because of the career year, because of the $6.5 million club option, and because of the rental that he is of sorts. So I like Top Ramon. I'm going to keep trying to get that name going. I like Ramon Laureano. He was great for the team last year, but I don't know that he could do it again. Clinton stopped into the chat to say, have a great vacation, Scrapes. Thank you, Clinton. Clinton has been with us this year. Thank you, Clinton. Ramon Laureano, been with us this year. But I don't know if anybody feels the way I do. I know that we were talking earlier with Chris and with Tony, and we were saying, hey, maybe there's no time like the present to work out a deal for Ramon Laureano. Again, I don't want him to go anywhere. So there you go. Those are some of the thoughts on the guys that are being reported in rumors and reports and all of that stuff. Okay. now we're going to go to Philip Rivers because I didn't get to talk enough about Philip Rivers yesterday. And I have a story of Philip Rivers that is unique to me. So years and years and years ago, before I worked for this radio station, I worked for another radio station, and that radio station had Nick Hardwick on it. And Nick Hardwick was the center for the Chargers for a long time. So I worked with Nick. And if you didn't know, Philip Rivers is like, I don't know if they still are, but at the time they were like best friends. And they, so what happened was Philip was inducted into the Breitbart Hall of Fame, I believe. And this was like maybe a year after the Chargers left San Diego. And so Nick was invited me to go to this dinner. And so I didn't even know that until that morning. He goes, "Oh yeah, Phil's going to come by." And I look at the guy I worked with and I was like, "Phil." And I was like, "You mean Philip Rivers is going to come by?" "Yeah, Phil's going to come by." So Phil Rivers sat at our table for dinner, had some nice conversations, and I couldn't have had a good enough time with Philip Rivers. He was a great dude. He was open to my crazy questions. He was, engaged, and then he gave a speech that really put it into perspective how sad he was that the Chargers moved from San Diego. So I don't know anyone who was a San Diego Charger fan that doesn't like Philip Rivers. So I think Philip Rivers, has a special place here in San Diego because Philip, he chose San Diego. He wanted to be here. Unlike that Eli Manning that didn't want to be here. But Philip Rivers did something over the weekend that I think no one really even thought about. And it's very important in this day and age. First, Philip Rivers has extended his Hall of Fame candidacy for another 5 years. Once you take a snap, then it goes 5 years out from there. So he was coming up on being eligible for the Hall of Fame, and now he has played a game, and so he is now no longer eligible for the Hall of Fame for another 5 years. Say he retires at the end of this year, which I think he's going to do. But here's what he did that I think is amazing. There was a 2006 agreement brokered by the NFLPA, and players who are on a roster for 3 seasons receive health insurance for 5 seasons after retirement. During those 5 years, retired players are eligible to obtain health and dental insurance for 2 adults and their qualifying children. Rivers was set to lose those privileges in August. So what did he do? He is now going to extend I'm just going to read it. If Rivers retires at the end of the season, he and his family will get health insurance until August 2031. So although Rivers made a return to pursue individual achievements, he also did something very useful for his big family in the process. That said, the Rivers family would probably be okay financially without the insurance, considering he made $244.2 million over a 17-year career. Now, I don't think that Philip Rivers decided to come back and play football because he needed some health insurance. He doesn't seem like that guy. He has plenty of money. He seems very responsible with his money. But he has 10 kids, and they are all eligible for the NFL's insurance plan as dependents until they turn 26. All of his kids are under the age of 26. And his eldest child, Hallie, is 23, so she can receive coverage for 3 more years. And I believe Hallie is the one who made Philip Rivers a grandpa, which I think is a hilarious thing that people keep saying because, he is a 44-year-old grandpa. That's a pretty young grandpa, I have to say. But long story short, Philip, I know that he doesn't need the insurance, but maybe for 10 kids, he does. 10 kids is a lot. I grew up in the Bay Area, and I remember this one family that I went to school with. They had 10 kids, and they didn't even have a regular car. They had one of those like big Econoline vans to go from place to place because they had so many kids to transport that they needed a big commercial van So you didn't leave anybody behind. 10 kids. That's a lot. That's a lot. Gator Padre says he's a 48-year-old grandpa. There you go. I wish I could be a grandpa in my 40s, but that is definitely not going to happen. Rod says father of 5, 48 years old and not a grandpa here. Proud of it. Man, I didn't realize the grandpas were being, can grandpas be born? I guess grandpas can be born, not in the traditional sense, but grandpas are born, I guess, when your kid has a kid. Anyway, everybody knows how it works. It's how you become a grandpa.
What's annoying Skraby today? Let's find out. It's time for the Daily Gripe.
Bubba the Bull, a.k.a. Renee, said she was a grandma at 40. That's a young grandma, gotta say. My grandma was young, but not 40. I think my grandma was like 46 when I was born. I would have to go back and check. But anyway, my Daily Gripe. I may have even said this before, but I'm not sure. So I'm going to say it again because I had a situation. My Daily Gripe is when you tell people you don't like something and they tell you you're wrong. That bothers me. Like I was at a Chipotle a few weeks ago. And the Chipotle, I was going through the line, which I do like to order ahead. Speaking of talking about ordering ahead, I do like anyway, I was going through the line. They were out of a certain type of bean. And so I don't like the other type of bean. And so I told them I really wanted the other bean. Can I just get more rice or something like that? No, can't do that. Why don't you try these beans? You're going to like them. No. I know that I don't like that type of bean. So why are you telling me? You don't even know me. Why are you telling me that? Oh, I'm going to like them. That's what my Daily Gripe is. Whenever someone says like, oh, you don't like fish? Well, you've never had fish from this restaurant. I don't care what restaurant it's from. I've tried enough fish in my life to know I do not like fish. So don't tell me that I'm going to like fish from a certain place because I already know I don't like it. Final Daily Gripe of the year. Thank you to everyone who's made the Skraby Show great in 2025. That means all of you. I'll be here for the rest of the week, but it's been a great year, everybody. Thank you for supporting me and joining me. Have a great night.
The base